In ancient Rome, a seemingly ordinary staple food took on extraordinary political significance. Corn was more than just sustenance. It was a tool of power, intrigue, and even attempted monarchy. I welcome you to my YouTube channel where I explore ancient texts, and by ancient texts here I mean texts that have been around for thousands of years. At the moment, I'm going through From the Founding of the City by Titus Livius or Livy. This is a collection of books that was written about 2000 years ago. It covers the history of Rome from its founding by Romulus in the 750s BCE to the time when Augustus was emperor, which was close to 0 AD. If you have not subscribed, subscribe so that you do not miss any of the videos I upload. Livy's writings reveal that corn was the most widely consumed food in ancient Rome, making it immensely valuable. This value made it a prime candidate for manipulation, blackmail, and even the pursuit of royal ambitions. Such was the importance of corn in Rome's political landscape that the position of Prefect of the corn market was created. This official was tasked with preventing hoarding, regulating prices, and ensuring a steady supply of corn even through imports during times of scarcity. Even though it was the plebeians and the slaves who mostly consumed corn, the political class did participate in its farming. Livy tells us that even the kings participated in the growing of corn before their expulsion. Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, the last king in particular, left behind a huge farm with corn growing on it. And as a punishment for his attempt to return to the city and reclaim the throne, the corn was cut down and thrown into the Tiber. Livy writes, "The land of the Tarquins, which lay between the city and the Tiber, was henceforth sacred to Mars and known as the Campus Martius. There happened, it is said, to be a crop of corn there that was ripe for harvest, and as it would have been a sacrilege to consume what was growing on the campus, a large body of men was sent to cut it. They carried it, straw and all, in baskets to the Tiber and threw it into the river." Livy describes the amount of this corn as significant enough to form an island on which buildings were later constructed. It is hard to believe this is true, but this description does leave us with the understanding that the farm was quite huge. During the first secession of the plebeians in 494 BCE, under the leadership of Lucius Sicinius, the farms were not cultivated and no corn was grown. The city was busy dealing with the issue of the plebeians demanding better treatment from the patricians and in particular the moneylenders. After the patricians considered the creation of the office of the tribunes of the people to end the session, the city awoke to an impending famine. The consuls had to order more imports from outside. Livy writes, "The Commonwealth was attacked by a food shortage owing to the fields remaining uncultivated during the secession. It would have led to the perishing of the slaves in any case, and probably the plebeians would have died had not the consuls provided for the emergency by sending men in various directions to buy corn." Livy tells us merchants were sent to Etruria, Cumae, and Sicily. Part of corn in transit to Rome was captured and held for a while by Aristodemus, the tyrant of Cumae. He demanded that before releasing it, Romans had to release all the property of Tarquin to him as he considered himself his remaining heir. Lucius Tarquinius Superbus had spent his last days in Cumae. Livy does not tell us how that issue was resolved. However, when the corn arrived in Rome, some patricians suggested that it be used to force the plebeians to give up the office of the tribune of the people. In fact, they accused the people of being responsible for the shortage of the corn by seceding to the Sacred Mount instead of going to the farm and working. Livy writes, "A large quantity of corn was brought from Sicily, and the question was discussed in the Senate at what price it should be given to the plebs. Many thought that the moment had come for putting pressure on the plebeians and recovering the rights which had been wrested from the Senate through the secession and the violence which accompanied it." Livy tells us that the loudest among those who had pushed the idea of using the shortage of corn to make the plebeians give up the office of the tribunes of the people was one Marcius Carolinus. Carolinus hated with passion that the plebeians could have their own magistrates. Livy quotes him stating, "If they want their own corn at the old price, let them restore to the Senate its old powers. Why then do I, after being sent under the yoke, ransomed as it were from brigands, see plebeian magistrates? Why do I see Sicinius in power? Am I to endure these indignities a moment longer than I can help? Am I, who could not put up with a Tarquin as king, to put up with a Sicinius? Let them secede now. Let him call out his plebeians. The way lies open to the sacred hill and to other hills. Let them carry off the corn from our fields as they did 2 years ago. Let them enjoy the scarcity which in their madness they have produced. I'll venture to say that after they have been tamed by this suffering, they will rather work as laborers themselves in the fields than prevent their being cultivated by an armed secession. It took the intervention of the older senators to stop the people from being blackmailed using the price of corn. However, one of the biggest incidents in ancient Rome regarding corn being used as a political tool happened in 440 BCE when there was another famine in the city. Livy states that the year faced a famine that was caused by possibly one of or both the following two reasons. Quote, the year being unfavorable to the crops, or the cultivation of the land being abandoned for the attractions of political meetings and city life. One Lucius Minucius was appointed the prefect of the corn market to manage the situation. Livy writes, he dispatched numerous agents by sea and land to visit the surrounding nations, but as, with the sole exception of Etruria, who furnished a small supply, their mission was fruitless. He made no impression on the market. He then devoted himself to the careful adjustment of the scarcity. He obliged all who possessed any corn to declare the amount and after retaining a month's supply for themselves, sell the rest to the government. Livy tells us that even by cutting down the daily rations of the slaves to half and putting pressure on the corn merchants to do more, he failed to stabilize the market. Many Romans, particularly the plebeians, lost hope and threw themselves into the Tiber. It was amid this despair that an unlikely savior emerged. His name was Spurius Maelius, a plebeian who had become very wealthy. Through his networks across the region, and in particular Etruria, he managed to purchase a significant amount of corn at a price significantly higher than the actual market price. This made it difficult for the government in Rome to afford enough corn to feed the population. He then took the corn he had purchased at the high price and gave it free to Romans. Livy writes, he distributed this corn gratis and so won the hearts of the plebeians by this generosity that wherever he moved, conspicuous and consequential beyond an ordinary mortal, they followed him. Livy tells us that initially Spurius Maelius entertained the idea of using this popularity to get into the office of consul. However, the more popular he grew, the higher his aspirations went. Livy writes, he began to entertain loftier and unattainable aims. He knew the consulship would have to be won in the teeth of the patricians, so he began to dream of royalty. After all his grand schemes and efforts, he considered that the only fitting reward which owing to his greatness must be won by the greatest exertions. During the next consular elections, Titus Quintius Capitolinus and Agrippa Menenius Elanatus were elected. Meanwhile, Lucius Minucius retained his post of prefect of the corn market. At this moment, Minucius was competing with Maelius, a private citizen, in managing the corn market. The latter was doing a way better job, and his popularity grew by the day. Soon, Minucius made a serious allegations against Maelius. Livy writes, Minucius made a discovery which he brought to the notice of the Senate, that arms were being collected in Maelius' house, and that he was holding secret meetings at which plans were being undoubtedly formed to establish a monarchy. The moment for action was not yet fixed, but everything else had been settled, and the tribunes had been brought over to betray the liberties of the people, and these leaders of the populace had had their various parts assigned to them. These reports shocked the Senate, of course, and a resolution was reached to stop Maelius by all means. However, due to his popularity among the people, it was decided he was a serious threat and only a dictator could stop him. The Senate resolved to call Lucius Quintius Cincinnatus from retirement. He was 80 years old at this time. Lucius Quintius Cincinnatus is the person the modern city of Cincinnati in the US is named after. Livy writes, Cincinnatus at first refused and asked them what they meant by exposing him at the close of his life to such a bitter struggle. At last, after well-merited commendations were showered upon him from all parts of the house, and he was assured that in that aged mind there was not only more of wisdom but more courage than in all the rest, while the consul adhered to his decision, he yielded. Cincinnatus appointed Caius Servilius Ahala as his master of the horse. This was the second time Cincinnatus was being appointed dictator. The first time was a few decades earlier when Rome faced the threat of being defeated and conquered by the Volscians and Aquae. The next day, after posting guards at different points, he came down to the forum. The plebeians were confused and did not know what was going on, and in particular what had made it necessary to have a dictator appointed. Maelius and his conspirators understood that this tremendous power was directed against them. The dictator sent Servilius, the master of the horse, to summon Maelius to come to the Senate and face charges brought upon him by the prefect of the corn market. Maelius declined to go and surrounded himself with his supporters so that he would not be arrested. While he was explaining to the crowd how he was a victim of conspiracy of the patricians because of his generosity to the people, Servilius grabbed and killed him with a sword. Livy writes, Servilius returned to the dictator and reported that Maelius, after being summoned to appear before him, had driven away his officer and incited the populace to riot, and had now met with the punishment he deserved. Well done, said the dictator. Caius Servilius, you have delivered the republic. The dictator ordered the house of Maelius to be burned down. The corn he still held was given to Minucius, who distributed it to the people at the price of 1 ass per bushel. If you enjoyed this video, take a moment to strike the like button. I also welcome your comments. See you in the next video.